Good evening, everybody. The Music Fan is back, bringing smiles to the faces, knowledge to the people, and most importantly, music to the masses. And I am back with another Are You In? Now, usually I try to do one album from earlier in the year and one more current in the year. But two big albums came out on October 12th, and I'm going to spend two of my three videos this week talking about both of these albums. The first one is going to be Coheed and Cambria's newest album, Vaxis Act 1, Unheavenly Creatures. This is going to be a fun one to talk about. If you don't know Coheed and Cambria, they are a progressive rock / alt rock / progressive metal band from Nyack, New York. Members include Claudio Sanchez on lead vocals, guitars, piano, and keyboards, Travis Stever on guitars, lap steel guitar, mandolin and backing vocals, Josh Eppard on drums, backing vocals, keyboards, and programming, and Zach Cooper on bass, backing vocals, and cello. They've had a lot of different albums and a lot of big names, so apologies if I get any of this wrong. Their previous albums include The Second Stage Turbine Blade in 2002, In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth 3 in 2003, Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star 4 Volume 1, From Fear Through the Eyes of Madness in 2005, Good Apollo, I'm Burning Stars 4 Volume 2, No World for Tomorrow in 2007, Year of the Black Rainbow in 2010, The Afterman Ascension in 2012, The Afterman Descension in 2013, and The Color Before the Sun in 2015. Whew. That's a lot to say. And if you haven't gotten this already, this is a very interesting niche band, if you will, in the progressive rock scene. They are very bombastic, they are very boisterous, a lot of grandiose arrangements and a lot of grandiose ideas. Other than The Color Before the Sun, every one of these albums have been a part of this comic book series called The Armory Wars, which Claudio Sanchez works on. Kind of like the idea of My Chemical Romance back in the day, where the lead singer was also a comic book artist and is still a comic book artist. Basically, this overarching idea spans throughout the whole entire set of albums. From what I understand, in chronological order, we get the Afterman Ascension, Afterman Descension, Year of the Black Rainbow, Second Stage, In Keeping Secrets, Good Apollo 1, and then Good Apollo 2, and then Vaxis, the newest album. I haven't read any of this particular series, nor do I know a lot about it, so in terms of lyrical content, I'm not going to talk anything about it. I don't want to talk out my ass when it comes to this. If you are someone who understands the lore, please let me know, because I would love to understand it. I just don't want to be talking about something that I don't understand that well. From what I understand about this album, it brings in two new characters that are trapped on this prison planet called the Dark Sentencer. That's all I understand, and it's basically their way of trying to get off of the planet, away from all the bad guys. In terms of music, I love a lot of it. It is very, like I said, very bombastic, very grandiose in places, and there's a lot of memorable songs from this band in terms of songs like Welcome Home, probably the one that everyone knows in terms of when they hear Coheed and Cambria. 10 Speed of God's Blood and Burial, Running Free, and even a lot of stuff off of their newest stuff. My favorites being from Afterman Descension, with Century the Defiant, The Hard Sell, Number City, and even Domino the Destitute on Afterman Ascension. I think in terms of their best work, it is the Good Apollo Burning 1 and 2, and then it is Afterman Descension and Ascension. Year of the Black Rainbow, not a huge fan of that album. It was a little bit too weird for my taste, and the other two I haven't listened to enough to be able to give a good critique on. I may eventually do a discography review on them, so that way I can get in tune with this particular series and understand it a little bit better. The only other thing is The Color Before the Sun was more of a standalone album with more pop ideas and more one-off songs. And to me, it wasn't really memorable. I think their idea of trying to be this more mainstream band and trying to still use their sound doesn't work. I think their sound works so well because of the stories that they create. So when I found out that they were putting out a new album in October, hugely excited, checked it out, and here's what I think about it. First off, if you are a Coheed and Cambria fan, you're going to be sold already, probably. If you are not a Coheed and Cambria fan, it's going to be harder to sell you on for two reasons. It doesn't really change much in comparison to all the other albums that they have put out. And the second kind of detriment to this album is it is 79 minutes long. It is their longest album to date. It's 15 tracks, everyone averaging about 5 minutes in length. So on the whole, it's very hard to recommend this album if you don't like Coheed and Cambria to begin with. But if you do like Coheed and Cambria, or if you are interested in parts of it, I will say there's a lot of good stuff on here. Starting off with the prologue, it is a beautiful little tease into Old Flames that you hear at the end of the album, and it is kind of like childish and vintage in a way, only because it's like the piano that they're playing is a little bit out of tune, like the ones that you would hear in like older models of pianos. And then it brings this little dialogue part in, kind of trying to like set up the world that we are in now. And it then builds into The Dark Sinister, one of the best songs on the album, hard hitting, an 8-minute song that has a lot of really good stuff, a lot of really good lyrics, and a lot of interesting melody parts. It does sound a little bit like Domino the Destitute from Ascension, but it has enough there to make it a little bit different from what Domino the Destitute is. There's a lot of really good flowing guitar lines and a lot of just bombasticness. And I think that particular style is what they do the best on this album. Songs like The Gutter has that bombastic feel to it, and it has this power in the verses, and some really, really good verses with some interesting chanting parts. The choruses are nice. Even this flowing guitar solo in the bridge is really, really good as well. The Pavilion, A Long Way Back, is another one of these that feels a little bit more bombastic in nature, but it does have a more of a flowing, echoing guitar line at the beginning, and then brings in this more powerful bridge and chorus, and the drum parts are full of activity and very interesting comparatively to the lighter guitar lines. And Black Sunday kind of fits that mold too at the latter half of it. I personally love the beginning part a little bit more. I love this tense melody and how he's kind of singing it very small voice, like, there's so me, there's so me, there's so me. And like a little bit more closed voice, and it works well with this chugging muted guitar part. And then it brings into this more open sound and heavier sound when it gets to the bridge part and the I'm multiplying. And it's really cool because in this part it changes between 9/4 and 12/4, and it's the only real time where on this album they kind of play with the time signatures, which I'm a huge fan of. And also later in the song, it's mostly in 3/4, but later in the song you get this flowing 6/8 feel that fits so well into this song and makes up for a little bit of the weirdness in the latter half of the song. There are still some ones that are a little bit more powerful and upbeat. Songs like Queen of the Dark, which is this slow churning building song with some interesting drum parts and a really good melody. It Walks Among Us, another one of these slower turning ones, maybe a little bit more simple arrangement, but a lot of power in it and a lot of really good melody work. I'm a personal fan of this song. It is one of the simpler and more catchier ones, but it works really well with what is trying to be there. All on Fire is also another one of these ones that are a little bit more powerful. The drums are killer. The guitar lines are interesting. Solid melody lines, particularly on the verse. And there are some ones that are a little bit more subdued. The last song, Lucky Stars, is this beautiful acoustic ballad with some string parts and some drum parts. It kind of does that whole idea from Ascension with Subtraction, the last song on the album, but I think it's a much better song than Subtraction. Even Unheavenly Creatures has a little bit more of this subdued part in the verses. I don't personally like it because I don't really like the electronic tinge that they're using on there, but it makes up for it in the chorus. And also, Nighttime Walkers kind of uses a little bit of that electronic idea as well, a little bit more powerful, and it also weirdly uses this electronic tinge in the voice of Claudio Sanchez in the second verse. It adds something a little bit more interesting to it, but it doesn't really work for me either. So like I said, there's a lot of really good songs on this album. There's a couple that I haven't even talked about. Old Flames being one of them is probably my favorite song on the album. It fits more of that mold of in the middle. It's a little bit more catchier than everything else. It's very poppy at times. The chorus melody is very catchy, but also very simple. What I love about it, though, is the use of the lyrics. That is such a simple song, yet it's able to bring a lot of interesting melody lines and interesting turns of phrases, and very fast turn of phrases. And when you make it simple, you have to make it interesting in another way, and this is the case. The melody itself making up for a very simplistic arrangement. But overall, my biggest problem with this album is a lot of it does feel a little bit similar when you break it down. With Dissension and Ascension, there were only 9 songs, and I felt like there's enough of a difference between a lot of the songs on there to make up for the shorter length. With these 15 tracks, there's a bunch of standouts. For me, The Gutter, Old Flames, It Walks Among Us, Queen of the Dark, Black Sunday, Dark Sentencer, All on Fire. All those to me are standouts. I think each of them have enough there to make it very interesting. And then Lucky Stars as well. Once you get past like that top 7 or 8 or 9, it gets harder to say that everything else stands up above the rest. Now, in doses, a lot of these songs do work very well. Love Protocol having this very nice ska feel, but then has this very powerful chorus. True Ugly is a very hectic song with some very powerful drums, some interesting guitar lines, and this very weird post-chorus. And when you put everything together, it flows pretty well. There's enough contrast between all the songs where it works for the most part. I think, honestly, to me, the first couple of songs aren't as strong and as some of the other ones, like, for example, Unheavenly Creatures, not my favorite. Prologue, it's good, but, it's just a prologue. Toys, to me, is the worst of these full-length songs. It's very grating. There's something wrong with just the way that the voices and the guitars kind of, they just clash for some reason. I don't understand why or how, but it shows mostly on the chorus. It feels like Claudio Sanchez's voice is just a little off in comparison to everything. And what doesn't help is that melody that isn't interesting to me is at the beginning of the song. In the intro, it's slowed down so that you have to listen to everything so intently, just like it's this important message, if you will. And once you get past those first couple, yeah, Black Sunday is great, Queen of the Dark's great, True Ugly is good enough, Love Protocol is good enough. I would say probably the latter half of the album is better than the top half, even though the top half does have Dark Sentencer. But the biggest issue, and I finally get to it, is a lot of these songs overstay their welcome. It feels like all these songs are a little bit too long in places. Like I said, a lot of these songs are about 4.5 to 5 minutes to 6 minutes long. And there isn't enough there for me to be like, okay, every one of these deserves the length that they have. And when they do, the problem is that the previous songs are so long that, like, you're getting to track 7, track 8, you're already 40 minutes in, and you're feeling like, even if this next song is good, you're already beaten down by so much depth, so many songs that kind of feel the same at points. Not saying that they are the same, but when you break it down, they sometimes feel the same. So even when you get to these great songs that don't necessarily overstay their welcome, it's a little bit of a fresh air and a little bit of a finally, Songs like The Gutter to me doesn't overstay its welcome. It Walks Among Us, Old Flames, Lucky Stars, All on Fire, Black Sunday, Queen in the Dark, and Dark Sentencer. All of them don't necessarily overstay their welcome. So there's a decent amount, but all the rest of them tend to fall on that line. And that becomes a problem when you have a 79-minute album. It's a good album, but it's definitely not my favorite when it comes to these. I still think it's behind all the ones I said before with the Afterman series and the Good Apollo Unburning series. If each song had maybe a minute less to them, you're talking about now let's say a 69-minute CD, right? I think that's a little bit more palatable, and I think you would be able to bring these songs out a little bit better and make them more memorable. I will say, even just listening to it, there's still some things I don't remember from the CD because it's just so long and so in-depth. So for me, I can't really recommend the CD in terms of a full CD to people that aren't Coheed and Cambria fans. If you're a Coheed and Cambria fan, you're going to listen to this album because you've listened to everything else. I'll say it's much better than The Color Before the Sun, but I am curious to see where this new series leads. This is a first part of a 5-part series that they're coming out with this particular storyline. If I were them, I would streamline it a little bit more, take a little bit more time off of it, even if that means you got to do something like the Ascension and Descension where you break it into 2 parts. I think that one worked very well because of that. If they had put everything together, I think it would have been too long. And not saying that any of the songs sound similar, but I think even still a 80, 90 plus minute CD of both of those parts, I don't think would work as well as the 2 halves. So if you're a Coheed and Cambria fan, definitely check out the album. If you're not and you want to get into Coheed and Cambria, I would say give certain songs a listen. For me, it's Old Flames, it's The Dark Sentencer, It Walks Among Us, it's The Gutter, it's All on Fire, it's Black Sunday, Queen in the Dark, The Pavilion, and then Lucky Stars. I think those 9 give you a good idea of what this album is. Because with Old Flames, if It Walks Among Us, you get some of the more simplistic arrangements that are very catchy. With Lucky Stars, you get that acoustic ender. With The Gutter and Dark Sentencer, you get these more epic songs. With The Pavilion, it's a little bit in the middle with that. With Black Sunday, you get this very interesting and very sinister song, and Queen of the Dark, you get this more slower, sinister song. I think that is a full range that you can get from there. And then from there, if you really like what they have, definitely take a look at the whole album. And then from there, take a look at The Afterman, look at Good Apollo Unburning. You will probably not understand the storyline, and that's totally fine. You can still get caught into this interesting music, this interesting progressive music that is a lot of fun to listen to. Claudio Sanchez's voice is really, really good too, and a lot of his lyrics are really good as well. It's not going to be like a progressive album like, say, a Rush or a Dream Theater. It doesn't have a lot of those guitar solos. It doesn't have a lot of those changes in ideas. It's more of this more grandiose idea. And if you're fine with that, then it's going to be for you. But that is my time. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this album, of course, give this video a like. Tell me what you like or hate about this particular album. Subscribe to my channel, share this with your friends, and most importantly, just keep on watching my videos. So this is the first Are You In from October 12th that I'm going to be taking a look at. And I'll be taking another look at one on either Sunday or Monday. The 3rd part of my Digging Through Discography with Hawken with a special guest tomorrow. And then the other Are You In on Sunday or Monday. And I'll be right back on track. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. This is a music fan signing out.